Proverbs 24:16. The godly may trip 7 times, but they will get back up again. But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Maia Moments. I'm your host, Maia, and I'm here with a lovely friend of mine who has actually been on Maia Moments before. If you are new here or you haven't listened, go back and listen to the episode Forgiveness. I have Maurice Victor with me, and I'm so excited to talk with him. This time, we're not talking about forgiveness or talking about that business 7x70 at all. We're talking about him and the ways that he's creative in the other areas of his life. He is an award-winning videographer, the owner of MV2 Edits, and he is now the director of creative content at Pitt's women's basketball at the University of Pittsburgh. And I'm so honored to have him on here to just talk about all the ways that God has purposed him to be creative. So yeah, say hi, Mo.
What's up, y'all? Happy to be here.
Yeah, right. It is a new year. Crazy. He just also celebrated a birthday. So happy birthday. And
Thank
mine's is
you.
coming up soon. Not to date this particular episode, but it is February. So
Like February is the best month.
period. It's my favorite month. You got Black History Month. You got my birthday. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that to me. It's also the shortest month. So I don't know. I always love February. February is always a good month.
It's a blessing.
And my parents, their anniversaries in February. So I think it's jam-packed with so many things. Yeah, they just celebrated 25 years. Yeah.
Oh, congrats to them.
Thank you.
I think my parents just celebrated 25 also.
Oh, how cool. Yeah. 25 years, February 15th. They got married the day after Valentine's.
Wow.
But yeah, anyway, enough about me. So let's specifically talk about, where do you feel like the genesis of maybe what you do now, or maybe even like the dreams that you have beyond what you do now, but all of your creativity, where would you say the like genesis of that came from? Like, do you see moments in your childhood or like places when you were younger that you think like, oh, I was kind of already doing these things that I'm doing, or I kind of had a heart in this area that kind of led me down this path one way or another? Like, how would you say was the genesis of what you do now, and creatively speaking?
Yeah, I think I actually thought about this a few months ago. Surprisingly, like I haven't given it too much thought, but I thought back to when we were kids and like all the disposable cameras and this and that we had. I realized that I actually used to be the one always like taking the pictures or setting it up for like a self capture, or I'd always have it like around my neck, and other pictures. Like, so I guess ever since I was a kid, I was interested in it. I never really gave it too much thought or, really even considered that. But now I'm realizing that I think it was, just the thing that was innately in me as a child. Now I believe that it really cultivated when I got into high school and I took a class that was digital multimedia. I took it just because it was a free period, and like everyone said, you should take this class. It's chill.
Yeah.
But like I fell in love. I kind of became like the try hard of the class, like really putting in like effort to, do good videos and stuff. And I'd ask the teacher for extra help. And like I wanted to learn as much as I could, like soak it all in, because it was actually really interesting to me. And from there I picked up like making graphics and doing videos for my sports team that I played for in high school while I also played. Like I was doing both. And then after that, like I figured I want to keep doing this in college. So that's like what really got me like interested. And I would say like college is where I really like started going forward with it.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I kind of explained this in a different episode, but like that's kind of how I fell into acting in the theater side as well. Is like it was I got kicked out of choir, and I needed a elective for art specifically, and I could have done photography, but kind of similarly, I was always like, if you know me as a person or as a friend, like I'm the person that always has their phone now. I'm the one taking videos of everything or photos, and so I was like, I don't kind of want to go into videography or video or multimedia or anything. Like I already did that for my church and stuff. So I got into theater because it was like, it's the only thing that, I don't do. And it's like, whatever, it's a free period. learn something new, and I stumbled into it and end up being, the life path that I feel like I was called to ultimately. But it's kind of crazy how you like kind of stumble into it. Of course, it's interest and it's naturally things that happen, but like you don't
Yeah.
necessarily plan that like, oh, that one high school class that helped me in these
Yeah.
areas.
It falls into place.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so you have now you're taking it a little bit more seriously and you get to college and do you start at the women's basketball team, or like how does that come into fruition for you? Did you just know the right person, or did someone seek you out? Did you apply? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, it was actually completely natural as well. So my last roommate, Philip, at the time we weren't roommates, we were just like basketball friends. We hooped together. He was a practice player on Liberty women's basketball team. Um, and just like one day he invited me to come by and like hoop with them, like to be a practice player as well. So I actually did that for a couple
Right.
practices, like I think one or two. And something just prompted me to like ask if they needed any like photo or video help. um, and they were like, "We've been praying for that. Like, let's get you on board."
Wow.
And so I started as like a volunteer for a couple weeks and just kind of like came in when I could, like after class or before class, and I'd shoot practices and just like create some content for them just so they could see what I could do. And after a couple weeks, they decided to bring me like on staff as a student worker and pay me, and so that's how I got like my start with women's
That's
basketball.
incredible. That's incredible because, like,
Yeah.
what if you never asked? Wow.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
it's so crazy because I wasn't even that serious about it then. So I don't even know. I think they asked me to show them some stuff like when I first said it. I can't remember what I showed them because I don't remember what I was doing back then. Like I didn't have clients or anything, so who knows?
yeah, yeah. But you had enough, of course. Whatever you had obviously was enough. And then, you
Yeah, they
just
took a
showing
chance.
up, you showed up when it mattered. And so they took a chance on you. And I mean, the rest is gravy pretty much with that. Cause you did that. Did you do that till you graduated? Like I
Yeah.
know, yeah, you did that pretty much the whole time you were at Liberty.
Yes, I did
So
for basically I was there for like 3.5 years.
that's
So I did
crazy.
it my whole time there.
Wow. I know that you didn't major necessarily in digital media or in videography. You majored in strat comms. So, like, what was your process with picking that major, staying with that major? And, like, what was your time at Liberty? I mean, of course, we all we're all kind of connected, mutual friends wise, but like on a networking basis, how do you feel like Liberty served you, or what you got from it when you were there? Outside of, just college in general.
Yeah, Liberty was great. I mean, I chose my major before. I don't really think I knew what avenue I was going to go into. But I had spoken to a couple of people when I came to visit, like with my sister for CFAL. And I kind of explained that I like
Seafall.
video, I like graphic design. Yeah, right. And I like photography. Like I like a lot of things. And they explained to me like you probably don't want to do digital media or cinematic arts, which is just video heavy and focused in on one thing. They're like, you seem like you are more of like a communicator, so you should study stratcom so that you can understand all those aspects and be like well rounded versus being like an expert in one thing. And so that's what made me choose
That's
stratcom,
good.
is because I was less interested in like the technical aspects of like how to do video. Not that I couldn't have learned anything from digital media, but like I trusted like YouTube and peers to teach me like what I need to
Exactly.
know from that aspect. I wanted to know more like the strategy behind it. Like how do I make content that's going to impact people, like by studying the strategy and understanding like more about marketing and what works and stuff like that. So that's why I went the stratcom route.
Yeah, and I think that that's why there's a level of in the work that you do, there's a level of storytelling and just marketing at a different level than just surface. You're not just doing like, of course, you're doing things to help market things or to help whatever the story may be, portfolio or just telling the story, because you do wedding videos and things of that nature. But I think it just goes is the underlying of like being impactful with whatever the purpose is for the films. I mean, you do video photos too. So, I mean, I feel like just in terms of like who your brand has been from MV2 edits wise, you've done a really incredible job with like having the storytelling aspect. And so big ups to Stratcom and for you just
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a great compliment. That's the goal,
yeah.
is to just tell stories. So
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. That's why I even wanted to do acting in the first place. I felt like storytelling is just kind of what I'm good at. And now doing it professionally on the other side now, trying to get like you, my boy. um, from the aspect of just helping people. Of course, I know how to put a good story together. And I feel like from my side, I was calling myself a social media manager, which you also have experience with
yeah,
doing management for social media and stuff and marketing. A lot of people don't understand that there's like a science to it. There's a strategy behind it. It's not just, it is and it isn't. It's calculated shooting things at a wall, seeing what happens, and then
yeah.
analyzing the data to like
Figure
get
out what
better and
works.
better. Yeah, but it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna willy nilly just natively post, I don't know, 2 times a week spontaneously and be able to get the
Yeah,
data
that's
from
what I
that.
feel like. That's what a lot of people think it is, but it's like, it's deeper than that. There is
Very
strategy
deep.
behind what every brand does, whether it looks like they're just doing paid marketing or if it looks like, wow,
Right.
this brand is authentic. It's like, there is authenticity to it, but there's also strategy behind it.
Yeah, always, always. You have to have some type of science behind it to be able to analyze data, and that's just is
Yeah.
what it is. And success will only be measured if there's data behind it. But anyway, yeah, the networking there. Did you feel like you met other people even outside of like the communications house or the arts because they're now together at Liberty, but outside
Yeah.
of those heads, did you feel like you were able to just get familiar with other people that have been helpful outside of necessarily at surface value that were helpful to your journey as like a freelancer and then now being director? Like, was there any connections that you made that just made it a little bit easier in your professional journey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even my journey to getting to Pitt came from a connection at Liberty. Shayna Vega, who was a player at Liberty, and she graduated like I think 2 years into my stay there. I helped her learn some. I just helped teach her a little bit about Photoshop, a little bit about Premiere Pro before she left and went into the workforce. And she ended up coming to Pitt and working here. And before she left, she recommended me for the job, and that's how I ended up getting here. So that's one connection that was really
That's
big.
incredible.
But even in that story, I didn't find out until later. I did not put him as a reference, but Pitt reached out to Isaac Apon, who's, as you may know, is the creative director for athletics at Liberty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
me and Isaac didn't necessarily work together a ton during my time there because I worked with basketball and he was primarily football. But we did have a couple meetings, and he helped me out as I was like a student worker there. And he gave me a great recommendation at Pitt. They told me he spoke really highly of me and told them to
That's
pay me whatever I
incredible.
want, which is
Wow.
really cool to hear from someone that like I didn't necessarily interact with at the highest level.
Come on,
Um,
compensation.
but yeah, I mean, it was really cool to hear that. Isaac is a great guy. And I've met a lot of other good friends too that I'm still connected to that are in the collegiate athletics world or pro, like Cullen, Coffee, Corey Easley or Ely, and Easley, sorry, messing up his name, and a couple
All
others
good.
in the pro world. Devon, I met him at Liberty, and he's working with the Chicago Sky. So I've met a lot of people that are in this world, and countless others. I mean, I just was talking to, a potential employer, and they brought up Isaac and a couple other guys that I know that they
Wow.
just happen to know also through the sports world. So Liberty like has a great creative atmosphere, and
I
I've met a lot of good
agree.
people there.
I agree. Oh, okay. So you're doing, you've gone through high school, you're now doing it more professionally as a student worker. When do you start doing MV2 edits, and like how do you like, make the decision to go ahead and start that? And then what was your, I guess, your goal with it, and is that still the goal that you have with it now as a freelancer through it?
Yeah, so I actually started it right before college, surprisingly. So I started in high school. Right, I think before graduating or after graduating, I had just done, like, technically my first customer was my basketball team and my high school coach, because they wanted me to make the team poster. And I was just gonna make it, but he was like, "No, like we got to pay you for your work," and he was kind of like giving me the whole talk
Period.
about, like, like how it's work and you got to charge and whatnot. And that's what kind of got me thinking, like, maybe I should start something. So at the time, it wasn't really like a business yet. It was just kind of like a name. And I just did like little things here and there, probably not making anything. But like slowly but surely, I started like building up clientele and kind of taking it more serious, and investing in equipment. Like I originally got cameras from like my mom, like they bought me a camera, which is super super nice. But like
Right.
pretty soon, I like got another camera, like traded that one in, and I kind of did that so on and so forth until like I got to kind of where I am today, which is like closer to like my dream setup and what I want to have. And I think like my ultimate goal starting it was just like, I want to like create and tell stories at the like best of my abilities, um, and kind of stay diversified. Like I think that's a big part of like my like mission. Like my overall mission currently with MB2 is to like, it's to meet people's needs, meet their media needs. But
Hmm.
like something that I'm kind of transitioning into is more, speaking on the vision side of it, and like I want to bring your vision to life, and
That
um,
makes
I
sense.
want to do it in all types of diverse aspects. So whether that's like a wedding or it's a sports team that needs like an intro video, I want to be able to do all those things and just be like diversified in my content.
Yeah, like not necessarily quote unquote niching down or like trying to
Yeah,
be. I mean, I, I can go on a rant about that, but I think that's great, and I think you've been someone who has the credentials and the portfolio of being able to deliver that kind of stuff, whether weddings or doing stuff in like the music creative industry or helping with clothes, or there's been so many different things that you've been able to say that you've helped bring the visions of, and so I'm excited for that. I think that's great.
yeah. I think there's definitely levels to keep aspiring to. Like I'm not anywhere where I want to be just yet. Like you said, I deliver, but I'm like, like I'll get
Oh, come
there, but I
on.
try my
Come
best.
on. Like, this is the creators podcast. Everyone I talk to, when I give them accolades and I give them something, they're always like, but I'm not where I want to be. Of
I don't
course you're
think
not.
any of us, I don't think any of us are where we want to be because the
No, we're
bar just
not.
moves every
Of
time we get
course.
close.
Yeah. But this is the thing. I mean, for other people who watch our journeys, I'm sure you hear it just as much as I hear it, or anyone I talk to who are creative. Like, people are inspired by the journey. They're inspired by what you do because you demand quality out of yourself, and because your standard of quality is it's a lot higher than other people's. Usually, what you feel is like, oh, rinky dink, or what I'm doing is not where I want to go. It's still so much not better, but just so much more less attainable for a lot of people, they feel. And so like that's the
Yeah,
whole
that's
reason I'm
true.
even doing this podcast, is because people don't understand, like, a lot of us are winging it. Like, yes, we have success and
Yeah,
we're doing it, but like you've either come to a place that you're like, yes, I can fall flat on my face and look crazy right now for doing this, but I'm gonna try. And like, if I fail, I'm gonna just learn from it and move forward. A lot of people just don't even, they're so caught up in failing, like they just don't even try. And so
yeah. I think that's such a
hopefully,
big thing you said is like we're all winging it. Like I know that's like something that I think has been the weirdest, I guess, realization is like as I like kept on like going through this journey, like you're always looking at certain people as like inspirational and stuff, and you're like,
yeah.
what makes them like what they are? Like I wonder what the secret sauce is, and you get all those. I don't know if you get these like creative emails that are like, my course on this or my course
Yeah.
on that, like the
Yeah.
5 secrets to success in the creative industry. And
Yeah.
like those, like I never really got into those because at the end of the day, like now I realize everyone's just really winging it and
Were
some people just
we?
look better than others at it. Like I
Yeah.
could, if I right now decided I wanted to start a course and I just made some steps, people would be like, oh, he has it together. But really I'm winging
Maurice,
it and I'm just telling you what I think works.
you could make a course right now and make bank. Like you have more credentials than some people that are making courses. I get like chills now because I'm not trying to like talk down on other people's business ventures and stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of people who have just got on YouTube. They didn't even have experience in certain things. They just learned things on YouTube. And then now they have built a business around what they learned with no experience and they're making money. Like I can't be
Yeah.
mad at them for making money, but they are. So people who actually have the experience and the time, the trial and error in it, like of course you're winging it just as much as they are, quote unquote, but like you have the experience behind you, which kind of puts you in a different category. But yeah, I have looked through those master classes and stuff. Sometimes I will, especially if it's free, like a free workshop, I
Yeah.
just go listen to see like what they have to say. And 9 times out of 10, everything they're saying, I already know or I've
Yeah.
heard I might
They're
disagree
just
with. And
presenting it in like a good way.
yeah, yeah, in a
Like,
presentational way that's put together, it's packaged nicely, which I'm not mad at. And it's put together in a way that a lot of people who don't know or who haven't learned or don't have the experience, they're telling them a whole whirlwind of things that they don't
I
know
was about to
about.
say, like, I think I don't want to like, you know, say that they're not good courses or anything like
Yeah,
that. I
no, no,
think it's
no.
just like when you reach a level, you're like, oh wait, like I know this stuff.
Yeah,
I just may have not presented it this way.
yeah,
But there are people out there that are like more amateur, like just new
exactly.
to the business, or maybe they're just trying to get into it, and they're like, that might all be,
It's new
amazing like
information.
knowledge. Yeah,
Like they are having epiphanies off of these things, which isn't to even compare, like I'm not saying anyone's better, but it's like when I feel like for me, it's reassuring that 'cause sometimes you do have imposter syndrome. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
yeah,
I'm charging people money for this. I don't even know if I'm worth this. And then you kind of see, I don't like calling them competition. I call them peers. You kind of see what your peers are doing and listening and figuring out what
yeah,
they're doing. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, wait a
yeah.
minute. I kind of know more in this subject than even the people that I'm like looking up to or I think are doing well. And that kind of just puts things into perspective for me.
Yeah, I used to struggle with like what you kind of mentioned, like pricing and stuff, like because at the end of the day, that's one of the main things that I see all the time is like tips on how to, price yourself or how to do this, how to do that. And they all kind of say the same things or they kind of lead you back to the same point where it's like it's all about your value. Like what do you see your value as? And you have to go and prove that to a client. Like there is no this like
Yeah.
videography costs this much, photography costs this much, design costs this much. It's whatever I think I value of my
Yeah.
time and what my talent brings to the table. Do I think I can convince a client of that? And I think at first, like I had to go through a whole like just kind of talking about my journey a little bit more. I had to go through like this process where I was getting like clients and little jobs here and there, and I did it for a while in college. But then there was one boxing gym that I did stuff for back home. I had done like a few videos for them and kind of just charged them like nothing just because I didn't value myself just yet. But I was like in between each time I shot for them, it was like I was getting new cameras, like new laptops, this and that. And finally, someone from the gym approached me and was like, a friend of mine, she had a son that I went to school with. She was like, how much are you charging them if you don't mind me asking? And I told her, and she's like, triple it. Like whatever, like next time you do something for them, triple your cost. That's way too low. And she gave me the whole spiel about like, I got to value myself. I got to write contracts. I got to do
Yeah.
this. And she was kind of like, to me, that was the moment that I went from like having MV2 edits, but it was just kind of like a thing to do on the side, almost like a hobby that just had a page and a
Right.
name,
Right.
to where I kind of made it a business. That's when like I went out and I got my all my legal stuff figured out, and I figured, okay, I need contracts, I need this, I need invoices, I need a management system. Um, and that's where I was able to kind of like bring it all together because she motivated me and she stayed on me. It wasn't like a one-time conversation. It was like we talked about it. I
Wow.
said, okay. And then she followed up like a week later, was like, so like, have you tripled your costs? And I was like, yeah, I'm working on it. She's like, no, just do it. Then she was like, do you have your contracts? And I was like, I've been searching online for contracts. And she's like, I'm going to send you mine.
Oh,
Change like
wow.
the wording for yourself and figure out what you need to add for video and whatnot. And from then on, like, she made sure that I set myself right. And even
Yeah.
back then, I was still undercharging, but it was, that's just part of the journey. Like it was more than what I had
Yeah.
been charging. And then eventually, as I again, got more and more equipment, more expensive stuff. That's when I realized, you know what, like my time and, the value of my equipment, the value of my knowledge is important. And I was
Come
able to raise my
on.
prices more and like, and now I'm like, I'm not apologizing for it. You're either going to book me or you're
No,
not. Like
there's
I
nothing
have
to
an education to pay
apologize
for,
for.
gear to pay
Mhm.
for, life to pay for. And so you kind of just have to stick to it. It's all about just knowing your value.
Yeah, I agree. So like I come from a family, my mom's a graphic designer, and a lot of the graphics that she did, my dad's a pastor, so a lot of graphics that she did was church, under the church umbrella, ministry umbrella. She would do, the programs at her church, anything that had anything to do with paper or graphic design at her church, she was pretty much the go-to. She created all our websites, website development, all that. Now, mind you, she got her graphic design. I think she got associates in it. She got this like when I was like a year old. So we're talking about 20 something years ago when she got it. So at that time, it's not in demand as much her degree is now. And I tell her all the time, she would do all of these programs like funerals. It became like her bread and butter. Like people wanted her to do graphic design for funerals. And it's not necessarily too crazy, but she did something that was signature with all her programs, and it just was beautiful. And still to this day, she still does funeral
Oh wow.
programs because people just love she does some like different things with color grade paper. I have a lot of background with it because who do you think was helping her with all of this stuff? Me. I have endless paper cuts from folding, and I know the different grades of paper and how to do it and all together. But I remember growing up, and because she was a pastor's wife, she didn't want people to think that she was money hungry or anything. But people would pay her like she would say, pay me $50 for 400 programs. Now, mind you, she's not only designing the programs, she's also
She's cutting and
printing
folding.
them, she's cutting and folding, she's doing the whole thing, and she'll ask them for $50. For me now, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, are you
There's
out
not
of
much I
your
would do for that.
are you out of your mind? Like you barely getting gas and you've done all this work, but that was her heart. That's how she helped people. And people would still be arguing with her and undercharging her for $50. And so I just had like I know for myself, I was like, I'm not arguing with prices. And that's all I'm saying that to say, like, please, anybody who's listening to this and you're trying to understand, like, oh, I think I'm worth this, but I don't know. Stick to your prices. If people are deterred by your prices, it's not meant for you. And I don't mean to say that to be like condescending, but like even case in point, I reached out to Maurice about something. I said, what were your prices, Maurice? He told me his prices said out of my budget. I did not try to negotiate with him. I did not try to like belittle him. I'm not gonna go on Twitter. I see a lot of people get on Twitter, Instagram, this person charged. That's it's not for you. Obviously, it's not
Yeah.
for you.
I
But
mean,
that does
it's the same way if like you wanted to go get food somewhere, but you realize this restaurant is just a little too expensive for me. You're
yeah.
gonna go take yourself to Chili's and get, two
You
for
sure will.
25.
I
And
can't
so it's
afford
the
that.
same thing. There will be like there's instances where I used to feel bad though. I used to feel bad if someone reached out and I gave my prices and they were like, oh, like we can't afford it. And immediately I'd start cutting it down and trying to make it
Mm,
work until like, I'm barely getting gas and,
yeah.
I'm basically working for free. And I
No.
realized like, no, like it's the biggest thing to me. If there's any like advice that I could give any creative starting out, or even if you've been doing it, but you struggle with this, learn to say no. Like learn it's okay. Like it's okay for someone to reach out and be like, hey, can I book you for this? You can tell them the price and like, hey, can you do it for less?
No.
No, that's my cost. Because you would never show up to a restaurant and be like, can you do it for less? Or if a doctor is performing surgery on you and they said, hey, this is the cost after insurance, you're not going to be like, can you like take the surgery back or like, can you charge me less? No, you're going to just figure out how to get on a payment plan or get
Yep.
some help from somebody, start a
Yep.
GoFundMe to afford that cost. Now, again, those are emergency situations. So that's why you go to that length.
Yeah.
But this isn't. If you really need a videographer and you can't afford someone's price, or you need a graphic designer or a social media manager, it's a large field. So you'll be able to find somebody within your price point. But
You
that's where you'll
should be able
realize the
to.
value.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
realize, like, okay, if I only have $50 for this video, I, I see what $50 gets me. So now you realize maybe I just need to
Yeah.
work my money up a little bit more before I like
Yeah.
get what I want. Or
And
maybe the
know that
$50 works for you. You
I
never know.
think in a lot of phases, especially when you're doing like creative content for marketing and stuff, you're working with a business to business. You know, you're not working with necessarily a consumer or like a regular client, just an everyday person. Um, and so when you're working to those too, you're like, you want all of these qualifications for how much? And that
Yeah.
could be a whole different podcast episode, but it's just like unrealistic. And so I just think people, if I can tell you anything as someone that is in a creative lane and you're trying to understand pricing for yourself, my best advice is off the top of your head, not even like trying to get direct numbers, but try to understand how much money you have put in, not necessarily like even with the big expenses. Like, I have a laptop that costs $1,500. I use a camera that costs this. Add those up. But think about the time you have spent in training behind the scenes. Yes, YouTube and workshops and all the classes. Think of the countless hours and then times that per whatever your rate you think you're supposed to do for an hour. And then try to figure out on top of that, add your equipment and say, this is all the money that I've invested to know that I'm even valuable or attractive to somebody. How much more should they be paying me? You do all that so your clients don't have to. I go to the YouTube videos, I go to the workshops, I go to conferences, so they don't have to. They're not just paying you for the one project, they're paying you for your training, they're paying you for the equipment,
Yeah.
they're paying you for the editing, they're paying for your expertise, they're paying
They're
for your
paying for your talent.
style,
They're
you
paying for your
know?
talent and experience. Like,
Yeah,
you did more than just do a service. Like, if I just came to clean your house, not to knock any other like
industry, yeah.
role in or industry, but if I just came and you asked me to vacuum or mow your lawn, right? Like, that is a single talent. Like, I just need to know how to do that
Do the
action,
mechanics of
right?
it,
So
yeah.
you're paying me for that action. But when you hire someone to be creative in any aspect, like I'm talking social media, video, photo, whatever it is, they're not just doing an action. You're not just coming and clicking a button. There are people that can do that. There are people that will just click a button for you, but you're typically what you're paying for is the value of someone that has learned and practiced and studied how to master whatever it is they got to do for you, so that it's done at the highest level. It's not just like, I'm not just showing up to your wedding with a camera and filming and then just throwing it together. I'm like strategically shooting it in a cinematic
Yeah.
way. I'm using the right equipment for it. I'm doing the right things in post production to tell that story beautifully, so that like it tugs at your heart and you can remember it
Yeah.
in the right way. It's really much more complicated than a lot of people think, and so
Or
that's
give
where.
it
But
credit
even
for.
ourselves, yeah,
Yeah.
even for ourselves, like, we don't think about all that sometimes. We just
No.
think, I am just clicking a button on a camera, like that's all I'm doing, so
Yeah.
I
And
can
you're
charge
not.
this. You're
Like,
not. There's
it's
way
so
more
many
to it.
mechanics to it. And when you are passionate about it, you love it. For you, it is more simplified than someone else. But, a lot of times when you talk to people, and if they just ask you, so from point A to point B, from the beginning of this journey to the end of it, can you go through every task that you have to go through? And if you could, if you go through it, you would be exhausted with just, getting ready, like pre
Yeah.
production before you even get things done. They're like, oh, this is why I paid you. And people understand you're paying for convenience and knowledge and expertise. It's not necessarily about the actual deliverables, or those are great, but you're paying for convenience. This is a luxury things. These aren't like, we're talking about first world problems, not third
Yeah.
world.
Like,
So
we're talking video for your company so that you can market yourself.
exactly.
Like, the fact that you even have a company like to do video for.
Is of course it's going to be expensive. You don't get mad at Louis Vuitton for being 1,500 to however amount of bags. You don't get mad at Gucci for being luxury items. So don't get mad at my luxury service. I would just leave it there. So that could be a whole nother podcast for another day.
For real.
But I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of people don't think about pricing. And even for myself, it's something, I have to raise prices now for myself because I'm in a different space than I was when I first pivoted my business. So it's like, okay, I'm kind of scared. I have to raise prices, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you got to do it. And
Yeah,
you'll, last thing I'll say on this, last soapbox, but raising prices can a lot of times be a good thing. Like, I didn't fully realize this. I had somebody, I can't remember who it was, tell me this. Um, but it was a different lady, like just in a different time, was just like, no, like raising prices is good because you will actually scare away the type of clientele that isn't actually going to grow your business.
yeah,
And it's kind of like a weird subject because I'm naturally like a helping person. Like I want to help everybody and
everyone.
help them succeed. But at the
Yeah,
same time, like everybody wants to pull off of your like expertise and kind of get free help or cheap help. And it's important to raise your prices so that you can grow, because a lot of times staying at the price point that you're at will keep you with the clientele that you're at. So if you're
yeah,
working with very small businesses, or like if it's just a single person, like a single employee business or whatever it is, not saying that those can't pay you, but a lot of times those are the ones that are starting out or whatever.
yeah,
Um, you will, if you don't raise your prices, you'll stay with those businesses all the
yeah,
time. And sure, if you go
exactly.
out and get every single one of those little businesses, you might actually make a living. But most of the time, you can't make a living off of just that type of
And
business.
it's
You have
exhausting.
to, yeah, it's exhausting. You have to elevate yourself to the point where you're getting the clientele that matches your value.
Yeah,
And a lot of times, raising those prices cuts off the lower level, clients that you don't necessarily need, and allows you to grow as a business and like,
yeah.
what's the word? Scale yourself up.
Scale, yeah. I think I'll be doing this forever. What I am doing, I think I want to sell my business at some point to someone who's, or at least have a seat at the table, maybe, but not necessarily be in the day to day actions, operations of it. Um, when I'm thinking of scaling, it really does come into play. And I think that's some incredible words of wisdom, just, in general, like, don't be scared about growth. Growth is beautiful and it's uncomfortable and it's weird. And especially if you do have a heart for people, like Mo said, or like even me, like I really do enjoy like helping people. It was really hard for me to even fathom that I could monetize social media. So it was
Yeah.
like, oh wait, people pay people for this. Like I've just been doing this, but the social media industry is it's just vast, like billions of dollars there. And
Yeah.
I get
Very
my little
powerful.
very proud to get my little crumb, from the table. But it's the industry is just vast. And so I would be shortcutting myself and my value of who I am if I didn't start to, start charting for who I am. I wish I could help every single person. And, at the heart of my business, I do take on at least one client that's either ministry based or someone that needs help with social media that cannot afford it. I take that on right now and I'm okay
That's
with doing
awesome.
that. I think I want to keep that and implement that as being a heart of just what it is because that's how I started. And that's how I got the love of social media. But in the grand scheme of things, you can't live off of generosity and thank yous.
Yeah.
So hey,
And at the end of the day, like, what are, like, in your perspective, like, what are people even wanting to pay you for? Like, I personally, like, let's say if I didn't have MV2 edits and I just had social media just to have fun, I wouldn't pay you. Like, I wouldn't hire you to run my social unless I wanted to make money off of my social media. And so I'd hire you to help me
oh,
make money.
oh,
So if I'm
of
hiring you to help me make
course.
money, wouldn't it make sense to pay? You see what I'm saying? Like, it kind of
Yeah,
makes sense. Like, you don't hire a CPA just because like you want to
true.
hire a CPA. You hire a CPA because you want them to handle your money well so that you can either hold more, make more, learn how to,
That's true.
process more of your money. So it,
That's
it
a good
it's an
perspective.
investment. It's just an
It
investment.
is. It is. Moving on from my pricing, I really hope you guys are listening and
I know
taking
that's a whole
notes.
podcast
That
episode
was a
right there.
whole podcast
You're gonna have to chop that one
episode.
up a good bit. You gotta have to.
I'm gonna have to chop it up because like that was some real good value. I hope you're taking notes because people don't talk about pricing a lot. A lot of people shy away from it. Transparency is becoming a thing, but people are still scared to be transparent about pricing for good reason, good and bad. But I just think be mindful. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so how did how is post Liberty and like getting the opportunities that you did and, ultimately saying yes to this position and just moving forward? Like, how has the journey been post grad and everything of that nature?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm very grateful. Like God's been really good, like post grad. I know a lot of people that, post grad it was like a, battle to try and find a place of employment and, what they wanted to do. I was lucky enough that like I think I graduated in December. In I think end of January I got a job. So I literally just freelanced for a little bit, hung out, and then I got this job offer with an agency that managed Maverick City Music shortly after I got on. And they had a bunch of other like gospel and entertainment clients. And I actually interned with Mav for 6 months before getting that position as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
So I was already plugged in with Mav. Soon after I was hired, they took on Mav as a client, and I was able to help lead a lot of that stuff as like a project manager, social strategist, and creative director and
Wow.
videographer. So I did a lot of shooting, editing,
Ooh,
a lot of planning, posting, and planning posts and stuff for Maverick City. So I did like a lot of their album strategy for um, a bunch of their releases, like Jubilee.
that's incredible.
Um, what was the one with Upper Room
Oh my gosh.
and with Elevation. So I was able to like work with Elevation's
Yeah,
team, which
yeah,
they handled a
yeah.
lot of the like strategy and marketing behind that. They're an amazing team. I was just
Yeah.
able to kind of like listen in, offer my input here and there, and then also like kind of shift the strategy to match Mav's aesthetic and the way they wanted to reach their audience, which was awesome. Like it was great being a part of just just an amazing like rise
Yeah.
of such a powerful music group in the Christian space.
Yeah. It was cool to watch. Because, I don't know you. It's weird now because a lot of people know people that you know, but they don't know them the way that you know them, right? So like I'm
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, I went to school with him. And for other people, it's like, no, do you know it's Maurice Victor? And it's like, yeah, yeah, like, yeah, he's always been Maurice Victor. But like, now it's like Maurice. And I'm happy about it. It's great. But it's just like seeing how you've been able to like be not necessarily elevated. I do think there's comes elevation from it, but just be able to see you kind of people don't know the people behind the box. And so to see
yeah,
all the incredible things that you helped spearhead or facilitate through and be like, wow, that's so crazy. Like, this is dope. And like, I know the person that helped facilitate these things. It's inspiring. It's cool. I feel cool. Like, wow.
that's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's weird. Like I hear a lot about it. People are always interested in that job specifically, and it's like to me it was just like not to downplay it, but it was just a part of my journey. Like that
Yeah.
was just where God led me, and I just did the best I could, just like I do anywhere I go.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool experience though, because it's gospel
You
and
worked with a
it's a
lot of
good
people
group.
during that time though. Not even Mav, but like Michelle
Yeah, I still was
Williams.
freelancing as well.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
were freelance. You
yeah, I
went
got
to
to do some
yeah,
stuff with
like
Michelle
I was
Williams.
like,
She was
what the
awesome.
heck? Like this guy. Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
And
crazy.
then you ultimately took this position as director of creative content. And I think for me personally speaking, I think that's when I realized like, oh, like people are starting to give official titles and positions for the type of work that is being done that hasn't
Yeah,
necessarily been seen as corporate, but like it's becoming something that needs to be corporate because it's not like you have to understand he's the director, but like it's a team that helps bring these things together.
yeah, yeah. No, it was cool getting that position. Working with Pitt. Um, it's been cool just getting to like elevate the team and tell their brand story. It's not a huge team that I work with. I actually only have one intern, uh, just
Okay.
because it's smaller. But I mean, it's still great to have help, and
Collaboration is always great.
yeah,
Yeah.
you get to collaborate. You also have like athletics to kind of like lend a hand when you really need it. So it has been good, and it's been cool working within a team that's like a little tighter. than like an agency per se. Like the
Yeah.
agency job was virtual. More so only saw other videographers when we were on sets together. But here it's like, you're traveling together constantly.
Yeah.
We have games together constantly. So
That's
you're really
incredible.
like surrounded by the team all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely a cool thing. And it's been a fun journey.
I love that. Okay, so with the theme of like the whole season stuff, like we've kind of talked about like all of the different things that you've been creative with surface wise. I'm sure there's stuff we didn't touch on, but I mean, how do you feel you have been creatively purposed, and like how does your faith tie into your creativity and the way that you go about things, just in general or like
Yeah.
specifically, but like how do you feel creatively purposed?
I think that's a great question. I love that that's like the topic. Because I believe that like I think all of us are creative. Like I think we were created to create. However it is like that it manifests itself. Like for me, that's within video and doing things like that. For you, it's interviewing people, telling their story, or helping them with their social media and telling their story that way. There's just so many different avenues that we are able to be creative, and I think it's because like the creator is the ultimate creative person. I mean, like he made all of this and all of us and everything around us.
Yeah.
Like that's the ultimate level of creativity, and I think that being able to just have an outlet for that, whether it's through this team or freelance project or whatever it is, I just think it's a blessing to have the opportunity to be creative. Like I think I honestly just think that is my purpose. Like I don't think I'll ever stop creating. Um, Even if I got like a different job, let's say I got a 9 to 5 or something,
Yeah.
doing completely something different, I still think I would do video on the side or something. Like
Yeah.
it feels natural, it feels right, and it's just something like God's gifted me to be able to do well. But I also like, even if I didn't do it well, I just love doing it. It's
Yeah.
not the love of being good at it. It's just like I like doing it. I love telling stories. So
Wow. That's beautiful.
yeah,
I think I think more people connect with that than they give themselves credit for. Just being creative. I always say we are most creative when we are most like our creator when we are creative. Just knowing
yeah,
like, God, he made out of nothing. We use what's already existing, but he creates out of nothing. And so it's beautiful to be reminiscent and kind of like think of my faith and like how God is using me in ways whenever I get to do something creative and in whatever way that is, whether that's me acting or with me doing marketing and helping people on that side or me doing the podcast. Um, it's always like the underlying thing is like I know like God is like calling me to something a little bit bigger than what may be on the surface. So that's great.
yeah.
Now,
So that's awesome.
specifically for your lane, whether that's in social media marketing or project management, or if you're talking about videography, photography, for weddings or for music or whatever the case may be, with your experience and what you have done creatively, what word of advice would you give to somebody that might want to start or has started, but they don't really see the value in it or don't see that other people see the value of it? Like, whatever piece of advice you would be think that would be helpful, what would you just want to say to them?
Yeah, I mean, um, man, there's like so much advice that I could give, and sometimes I'm like, am I really even the person to give advice or whatever? Like I'm still figuring
You
it
are.
out. But I don't know. I would say like part of like that mindset is kind of my advice is like just don't be afraid of it because we're all figuring it out anyways. I think the biggest hindrance to a lot of creatives, and I've seen it like with people close to me and even from people far from me. But it's like the hesitation to start something. Um, like the thought process of like, well, what if it doesn't, well, what if this, what if that?
Yeah.
And it's like we never know what's on the other side if we don't just dive into it. There's always like that fear of the unknown. And yeah, but like you actually worded it beautifully earlier. Like if we do fail, like we can just pivot. Like there's
Yeah.
no real failure. It's just like you learn, you move on. There's a lot of people out there.
That's
I,
true.
I don't really, I can't think of names off the top of my head, but there's like plenty of celebrities that have successful businesses that had like three others before, or like four
Yeah,
others
I
before.
mean, even like Ye, for instance, like he was in a lot of debt and he wasn't really in a good place business wise before Yeezus, or all the Yeezys and everything with that. And I mean, his wife helped him in some ways, and now he has like $1 billion company. So there's a lot
Yeah,
of
like
ways to pivot. Yeah.
there's so many, like it's never, you can't take it as a loss. Like yeah, a business could fail, an idea could kind of like fall apart or fall through, but it's like you, it's never really a loss if you learn something from it. So if a business fails, pick up like from what you learn and try something else. Because like if you try enough times, you're gonna find success. So that's just for me. It's just like whatever you're thinking about doing, whatever hesitations you have, just I mean, obviously be smart. Like don't be like not smart about it, but be
Exactly.
confident. Like just go with
Yeah.
what you have. And if you already have that business or you already started freelancing, like you've already been in this, but you're looking for advice, I would say kind of the same thing. Like if if you're thinking you may have already had the business, but you're thinking about scaling it, or I have to raise my prices, or I need to change my lane, just do it. Cause like you just never know what's on the other side of that until you go for it.
I agree. I'm a living, breathing testimony of that. So please just like trust your gut, trust your intuition. If you are someone that's a person of faith, really pray about it and like see like what God is telling you through that process. And 9 times out of 10, if your gut is telling you, that's usually the Holy Spirit telling you like that's where you're supposed to be, or this is what decision is supposed to be made. So just trust that. But yeah, you can obviously follow Mo, his journey, both personally on Instagram at Maurice Victor underscore, or you can follow him on his business page in V2 Edits. And I'll make sure to like put information, whether it's in description box or in the show notes for the podcast. But I think this is really fun, and I'm glad that we were able to touch on like just pricing, knowing your value, and just all things videography and stuff. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast, Mo.
Yeah, no problem. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
of course. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.